transfer to four-year university process, which is oftentimes like supported by like the transfer center here?
I'm going to channel my Oprah and have you do Mike, or else Mark's going to have to do double duty of repeating everything.
Do you have any proposals to improve community college to four-year university transfers?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think one of the biggest concerns that a lot of students have had is the number of counselors that we have, the number of support staff that we have on campus to help you navigate the transfer process and knowing what credits you need, knowing how you would apply, getting your application submitted to a four-year university. So I think improving and increasing the number of staff that we have that can help you kind of crunch those numbers, know what classes are available that would help you to get the credits you need to transfer, get your gen ed done. I think that would be the best place to start, and then helping you to kind of navigate those waters.
Hi. How will you promote community college within the high schools if you can, just because community college has a stigma that it's not the place to go straight to a four-year university? I feel like community college is a good step. How will you or your committee try to infiltrate the high schools so that way they know more about how great community college is?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Being a high school teacher myself, that's an avenue that we promote actively. We want to make sure that students know that it's not just a four-year university or bust. There is a middle ground, and a lot of students that I teach really are interested in the trades. And I think the community college district does a great job of supporting students and preparing them for not only college but career. And I think that that's one thing to focus on more, and that's something we promote in the district where I work. And I think using that experience that I have in the district, reaching out to our surrounding school districts that are, the secondary education, and promoting that, I think is going to be vital to increasing not just our, number of students enrolled, but also to ensure that the students yourselves are prepared for whatever those 21st century jobs are. Because we do a great job with the trades. I was able to have the opportunity about 10 months ago to take a tour of Fullerton with all the different programs, which is different from when I was here, having just the cosmetology program, having automotive, having administration of justice, and those are jobs that, when you need to fix your HVAC or you need plumbing, you're not going to call an attorney for that, because those are those everyday issues that people come across and challenges that people have that they're going to need that support at home with. So I think just promoting that at our different high school districts. Thank you for the question.
Quick question. Post-pandemic, a lot of people haven't been coming back. The numbers aren't there. We haven't been getting as many students as we did before. And we have a free 2-year program for anyone straight out of high schools. That's wonderful. But we hear the 4-year universities are doing that too. How can we distinguish ourselves to get those students back? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a tough issue, I think, and that's something that we have. Fortunately, we do have that program, as you mentioned, the pledge, which goes through Anaheim Elementary. Anaheim Union is a district that's signed on to that and ensures that tuition-free couple of years. And we have a lot of great staff from NOCCCD that come to our schools and promote it. And I think strengthening that partnership is going to be key, because I was able to bring my students into the classroom where they were promoting it and really informing the students about it and things that they didn't know, right? And that's, I think, part of that communication that needs to take place on a pretty regular basis to make sure that students know what opportunities are out there. If they still choose to go to a 4-year university, that's fine, but I think it's just something we have to make sure of, and it goes back again to those trades, the different programs that are offered. I have a lot of students who want to get involved in the trades, and the cost is astronomical compared to coming to Fullerton or Cypress College. So really communicating that, I think, to the students is going to be important. And inviting our wonderful Fullerton and Cypress staff. We have almost, I would say, every other week coming to campuses that are there to meet with students face-to-face, answer questions, and support them.
Okay, thank you so much for being here. I do have a question.
Oh.
Right, so anyways, thank you so much for being here. I do have a question.
question that is, given that there is a budget shortfall or deficit compared to last year, which in turn has led to cuts in student programs and services, what proposals would you have to address this and still maintain a stable student retention rate?
Well, right, the budget is going to be one of the most important things because without money, we can't do a whole lot of other things that we'd like to do. You're probably aware there's a proposition on the ballot. We don't want to rely just on that, whether it would pass or not. Proposition 2, which would be $10 billion in bonds, which about $1.5 billion would come to the community colleges. But of that pie, it might even be smaller coming to NOCCCD. So we want to look at what are some things that are working here in the district that we can promote, and analyzing what things are not working, and really getting a sense from you as the students, because you're here every day. I can't tell you what your student experience is like more than you know what it's like. So we want to really get the feedback from students and make sure that the programs that we're offering are being utilized. If they're not being utilized, then we have to reevaluate whether or not we want to maintain them or expand them or just completely cut them, eliminate them. I think as we're looking at the cuts, they need to come last from the classroom. So if there are any cuts that need to be made, we look at those areas that are furthest from the classroom first.
Hi, Mark. Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. Mine's more on a personal side of, we understand your background and how it's developing and growing. And please explain to us how your experience and progress through leadership that you are so far gives you a different perspective of what to do and how to evolve.
Well, as I mentioned, having been on the Anaheim Elementary Board for the past 6 years, it's helped me navigate just different stakeholder groups that are involved. Any decision you make, it's not going to be popular with everybody because everybody has a certain agenda that they would like to see accomplished. And so that's something that you kind of take into consideration. You're going to hurt somebody's feelings at some level, but a lot of it just comes down to that compromise. How can we achieve the best possible outcome for the most number of stakeholders and still continue operating as a college district and making sure those programs are available for our students. So I've had a lot of opportunities over the years where I've had unpopular votes. I've had votes where I've been asked to reconsider the votes that I've taken, and I haven't, and I've gone to different community meetings such as this where I've been able to meet and explain my position with individuals, and I think just a lot of that communication goes a long way, because even if you don't necessarily agree with someone's position, you still want to have a dialogue and be able to converse with them and come to some understanding. So if you can't agree, at least you can understand where different stakeholders are coming from. So I think that that's something that's been helpful for me over the past 6 years, is really having that open dialogue with other individuals who also care equally about the district.
Question. I'm president of the CCA here at North Orange County Community College District, Pamela Stones. And a classified question. Classified employees are often overlooked as school employees. Tell us what you know about our issues and how would you advocate for our concerns?
Thank you for the question. One of the things that I always remind myself about in terms of classified employees, and having had my own experience just in my day-to-day work life, my day job, and also, again, on the elementary board, is classified really is the backbone of the district because they provide all the behind the scenes in a lot of cases of support for the students. And so I think that that's something that we want to make sure that we continue to promote your well-being, because that will directly impact our students. So we want to make sure that whatever capacity that you're working in, your morale is doing well, your work conditions are meeting your satisfaction to the best of our ability, because that in turn will impact student outcomes as well. So, and that's something actually, I'd be happy to sit down and talk with you more in depth on, because I've reached out to all the associations and I really want to get their feedback. Again, it's the same thing as with the students. I can't tell you about your experience more than you know about it. And really, you're the expert on that. And so that's something that I want to learn more about, because I don't want to come in from a top-down type of leadership style where we're making improvements that are the best for you, whether you like it or not. We want to make sure that we're hearing, that at least I am hearing from you on how we can best improve your own work experience.
Hi, first off, I just want to say thank you for being here. I am a product of Anaheim Public Schools. I live in your district, so again, I really appreciate it. One thing that's been in the news recently is the discussion of community colleges offering bachelor degrees. As a board member, would you support the NOCCCD offering those programs?
That's something that really, I'd have to look into a little bit more. I don't, without knowing and talking to a lot of the stakeholders on some of the drawbacks and the benefits of it, I want to make a more informed decision about it. Just based on just first blush thinking about it, I don't see what the problem would be with it. As long as we're meeting all those requirements, the state of California, if that's satisfactory, then I wouldn't have an issue with it. But that's something that I don't think would be happening overnight either way. So I feel like I've got a little bit of time to do a little more research on that, and then I'd be able to make a decision on that in the future.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for being here. I know we touched on this before too about how you would help students transfer for your institution, and we have a lot of connections with CSUs and UCs, and primarily schools within California. So how would you help students transfer to private schools and schools outside of California?
Well, I think similar to CSUs and UCs, I think that that's something that we just have to establish those partnerships. Last Monday, we had a college and career fair. Fullerton, Cypress were there. There were a lot of out-of-state universities were there, private, just as you mentioned, private out-of-state universities. So I think just getting that exposure, I'm not sure how many students were aware of it, but I think, again, it goes back to this theme of communication and transparency and making sure that we are providing all those resources, because a lot of them are great resources to have, but if nobody knows about them, then they're pretty useless. So we want to make sure that we are targeting strategically to make sure that students are aware of them.
Thank you.
Well, Mark, a non-traditional student here, I have a question for you. What do you find is the biggest struggle for older students to return to college? And what do you see to address that?
I think the biggest challenge, and I would say I'm a non-traditional student as well, because I went back actually and got my credential as a second career. So it's a challenge, I think, in some ways of really finding the time once you've been out of school for a while, getting back into a routine. And there's just a lot of life experiences and a lot of life that happens between maybe graduating from community college or getting your bachelor's in your early 20s and then going on to a career and then going back to college again. It can be a challenge. So I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all necessarily, because everybody is in a different place in life. And so I think it is crucial, though, because to really promote to our non-traditional students, because again, we want to promote a lifelong learning experience. There's nothing wrong with coming back as a second career, wanting to get additional skills, additional training. And so I think just making sure that we can make that as seamless as possible. There's not just one cookie cutter way of doing it, but that's something that I want to make sure that we make it as seamless as we can. And so whatever that looks like, if it's promoting and providing more counselors to help support that transition back, letting you know if there's any financial aid that's available, whatever that looks like, it's going to be different depending on the person that's there. There could be 100 different ways for 100 different students, but really meeting the students where they are, meeting whatever that need is, whether you're 18 or you're 80. We want to make sure that you have the experience that is going to be worth your while. No.
Hi, Mark.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
What do you think is the main issue that you get, or like a goal you want to succeed?
There's not one major issue, as you can tell, just everybody has even just in this short conversation so far, there's a lot of different and differing opinions about what a priority is depending on your perspective. I think the budget has been one of the biggest issues, and looking at where we go from there in terms of, looking forward, the budget's not very promising. So I want to make sure that we can still provide a good experience for all of our students, no matter who they are, to make sure that they have the experience that they signed up for and that they get the most out of their time here at Fullerton or Cypress during the time. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest things. I think one other thing that I've heard a little bit here and there is about just safety and making sure that our student body feels safe here, and whether that comes with additional campus safety, working with our law enforcement in terms of making that visibility here so people feel safe. That's something that we want to look at in terms of, and it's kind of an elephant in the room, is how do we make sure students feel safe while they're on campus, but they don't feel like maybe they're being ostracized themselves or scrutinized in any way. So there is a delicate balance that we need to have on that as well. We want to be compassionate with individuals who may not necessarily be students but are on campus as well. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenges actually going forward.
Mark, I've been a volunteer here for 25 years, grew up in California, remembered when education was at the top of all the states in the United States. It's no longer there. Part of the problem is the young people that are in this room here will tell you that education is behind the times. So how do you balance and how do you look at education when it comes to balancing the basics and the future, and yet still making it a learning experience for everybody so that they don't get hammered with one thing that drives them away from education, and they don't come to class or to other classes, and when they walk out and go to get a job, somebody looks at them and says, "Excuse me?" So how do you look at education, first of all, question number one, and then how do you balance the future with the status quo that should remain like math, history, and the basics?
Wow, I hope I remember all the parts of that question.
I'll repeat them, I'm healthy.
All right, okay. The first part, it goes back to my own personal philosophy of being a warm demander of students and making sure not only are they wanting to come to class, feeling safe, feeling secure, and enjoying their time in the classroom, but also establishing that rigor for students and making sure that we balance that out. So we want to make sure that not only do they feel welcome, they feel a sense of community being, of course, in a community college district, but also that they're getting those concepts that we want them to learn that really goes back to whether they get that diploma, whether they get that degree, so they have that certain level of knowledge and that technical skill to do so. Also, that's another big challenge is, you mentioned, just the changing times. I was here a couple of weeks ago talking to some students about what are those jobs of the future going to look like, because a lot of the jobs that exist now didn't exist 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So what will the next 20 to 30 years plus bring? And that's the biggest challenge, I think, in terms of what do we look at our curriculum, what will that look like in the future? And that's something that we need to have a bigger discussion about. What do we look at those big challenges will be? And I forget the third question. But I don't know if, okay, all right, well, I don't know if that answered your question. Yes.
And let me upset some people in here. What is your feeling on tenure in education?
On tenure, I think that that's something that we really should strive to establish, because I think that that's something a lot of our staff would like to have, and I think that would help improve the morale, I think, of a lot of teachers who want it, right? There's some, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all it's not monolithic when we're looking at staff. Some staff prefer to have a couple classes they teach, and if we can support that, whatever the scheduling availability looks like, but also want to make sure that there are staff who want to continue a career in the district, that we also provide that opportunity as well. So I'm supportive of it. I mean, that's a short answer to your question.
It is.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you so much. Hi, so I have another question, if I may. I kind of asked this to Mr. Miller, who's also ready to be on the Board of Trustees. For you, I have a question. As we're aware, the recent running out of funds from the COVID aid program led to the termination of the rather popular $12 meal plan here at Fullerton College. Recently, there's been a new programs added, but students are still concerned about their food security. So what's next from here? What's the next step of the plan? And if you were to stand in front of those one of those concerned students, what would you tell them personally?
Well, again, that goes back to the idea of meeting those basic needs here, right? The safety, security, that also goes to food security. Students who don't sleep well, don't eat well, they're not going to do academically well either. So we want to make sure that we have that basic level of support for our students. It sounds like at least there's a temporary fix for it right now, but in the meantime, we don't take that for granted. So in the meantime, looking at other options, if there are grant programs available, trying to get additional funding from the state, those are things that I would advocate for looking into and making sure that we meet those certain basic needs for the students. And that's what I would tell the students that are here now, and any other student who does have that food security concern, that they may not be able to provide their own meals, they may not be able to provide for their own meals. That's what I would look into.
If I may follow up in that case, then I apologize. So you're saying that the students should advocate for themselves, and should this not be part of the trustees' duty to advocate for students' security?
No, I would say I would advocate for that, is what I was saying. Sorry if I misspoke, but that was my point.
Right, thank you so much for that.
So during your meet and greet, when I asked you about your top 3 concerns, one of them was student mental health and wellness, and that you were wanting to improve upon that and support that. What methods would you go about doing that?
I think one of the biggest issues that I've heard that students have expressed is just needing additional support, whether it's the wellness center, whether it's funding for additional counselors in the wellness center. And that, I think, is probably the first place I'd look to see if we could help support that. I don't know if there's a certain wait time on appointments, if there's a certain, what the demand is exactly, because I don't know what the numbers are, but that's what I've heard just anecdotally. This is one of the biggest issues. So this is a concrete example. That's one thing that we look at in terms of and also making sure, again, that resource is well publicized, that people know that there's not a stigma to it, but you're able to utilize it. It's a resource that's offered on campus, it's paid for. We want to make sure the students are utilizing it.
So with the recent push towards online education and all, we've seen it in California with Cabot College, we see it with the CBC program. There's also been a lot of pushback against that, especially from professors who are that students don't directly understand the information in the same way when it's presented, especially in asynchronous online courses. What are your thoughts about Fullerton College and really the NOCCCD offering more and more online classes every semester?
Well, I think there's a value of being in person, but it doesn't always work for everybody. So as a student, you know yourself, you know your learning style. I think it's a great resource for some individuals who may have a longer commute. I don't think it should be the end-all be-all in terms of offering it all the time and taking every single class online. We do want to have that interpersonal skills, I think, is going to be important because it goes back to what other jobs there will be in the future. I think having those social, interpersonal skills will always be a transferable skill that people need, and working on with collaboration, communication, those skills will be important regardless of your career choice. So I think that having some online classes is fine, but we also want to promote our in-person classes as well. Or a hybrid version would be fine too, where you meet online some weeks and then you're in person the following week.
As a constituent in your area, what would be the differences between you and Slauson? I live around downtown Anaheim, and I do see like a lot of signs from Slauson, and I am aware of his endorsements from those on the city council and the board of supervisors. So if you could also talk about your endorsements as well, I would really appreciate it.
Well, I don't want to talk about any candidates who are not here, but I will talk about my candidacy, and that would just be really advocating for our students and our staff, because a lot of the students that I had in the past several years are current students in the district. So I do feel a very personal stake, and having taken classes in this district as well, I feel that personal connection, and I want to see it be successful. And I have current students who will be transferring here next year. So I want to make sure that whatever their experience is, and whatever they choose to do in the future, that they're successful in it.
And then could you go more about your endorsements, your local endorsements?
Yeah, well, I have support from the adjunct faculty here, and United faculty as well. So I was able to meet with them, held my feet to the fire similar to this forum, and was able to gain their support.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
How do you plan to do community outreach? As you see, our professor has put on these amazing events, but she lacks the support from the colleges to promote these events, and there's a lack of attendance. These are very important attendance. How do you plan to, one, partner up with her and support her as she's doing this good stuff for all of us? She's informed me more than anybody I've ever known. So.
That's not true.
I thought I was going to get a really hard question, so thank you for the softball to end the forum. Having been my professor as well, I won't tell you how many years ago it was, but I recall there being a lot of guest speakers, a lot of really civic engagement, so that's remained consistent throughout the past several years. So that's something I think she has the technical skill. If I were to have the opportunity to be elected to this position, I don't have the technical skill that she has of those connections, but I'd have the bully pulpit to be able to promote it from the dais, and that would be my maybe one of my initiatives, is to really, how can we engage our students more to see the value and to really know about it, first of all, and to be able to attend this and make it accessible to all of our stakeholders. So I would really like to work with Ms. Balma in that different capacity.
Just in defense of all my amazing colleagues who do amazing work, we have so many things scheduled, and so it's tough to get eyeballs on everything. So the Hornet is here covering it, and it's so important to have them covering it, because then it goes beyond just this room. So if everybody can give a round of applause to our amazing Hornet Media, and to Mark Lopez for showing up.
Hopefully it wasn't a complete waste of your evening. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
So thank you to everyone for coming and asking great questions. And if you want to ask something personal of Mark off mic, you can have the opportunity to do that as well. Thank you all.
Well, that's an easy one.